So how's Angron doing and who's he been killing these days? Time to keep tabs on 40K's advancing narrative with a summary of the lore from Arks of Omen Angron. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today I thought we'd just do a quick summary video talking over the advancing narrative for Warhammer 40K and seeing what's going on with its entire Arks of Omen storyline, rumoured to be culminating in the return of Lionel Johnson and the endgame campaign for 9th edition. This one's the second book in a 5-book series. We've already had the Abaddon book, and the next ones are Vashtorr and a Xenos one, and then maybe just maybe a Primarch one at the end. Let's talk through the lore of the book and what impact it might have on the story going forward. I feel like perhaps the narrative is one of the most interesting things about the book. The other thing is a bunch of boarding action rules which might have more or less use to some people. I'll hopefully cover those in a future video. In any case, for the Arks of Omen narrative so far, it's all been a bit mysterious. Abaddon and Vashtorr have teamed up, Abaddon being the War Master of Chaos at the moment, the architect of the fall of Cadia, and wants to defeat the Imperium, and Vashtorr is the Chaos demigod of the Forge, supplies the other ruinous powers in their great game, and is kind of the patron god of people who make demon engines and heretical technology. Their alliance revolves around finding and combining the fragments of a great key to make a super weapon to fight the Imperium with. So far they've kept this all very vague. It's not clear what form the super weapon might take, but supposedly it's big enough to significantly turn the tide against the Imperium for the Chaos, and Vashtorr hopes that the amount of tech heresy being unleashed will propel him into godhood ascendant. In the last book, the narrative was basically that they've tamed a whole bunch of wayward space hulks, enormous great engines of destruction that Vashtorr is perhaps the only being that can really harness. Normally they're just big nightmarish fusions of ships and warp horrors. Vashtorr has actually made them into functioning starships though. Great big indomitable fortresses at the centre of Chaos battle fleets, and Abaddon has handed them out to his most trusted lieutenants. Most of the biggest names in Chaos seem to have been gifted one. These themselves are the Arks of Omen in the title. This story is the second book of the series, and Vashtorr and Angron are basically attempting to gain the key fragment on the world of Malakbael. There's part of Vashtorr's key hidden under it, though admittedly Angron the Red Angel doesn't really care all that much for trinkets and trickery. He's mainly all about destroying the affront to Khorn that is the device called the Choral Engine, which is located on this world. The Choral Engine is an ancient archaeotech device that's been unearthed by an Inquisitor Imagna. She has deemed the thing to be free of taint of either tech heresy or chaos infestation, really quite a rarity for the ancient technological wonders that litter the Imperium, and has basically been using it as a great big psychic beacon as an alternative to the Astronomicon, the psychic beacon of terror that allows ships to navigate the void. Half the Imperium is basically shut off from this behind the Cicatrix Maledictum now, and with the ships unable to be guided by it, it makes things very hard to organise logistically in the Imperium Nihilus. To help with her project, she's enlisted fleet quarters of the Odomitus Crusades to basically protect the entire thing. It's a great big battle group drawn from all sorts of areas of the Imperium, a bit of a follow-up battle fleet to the main ones going around and doing most of the conquering. Their main aim is to secure and police already conquered territory, though it's no small task against the galaxy of horrors that beset them. On many fronts they've taken heavy losses, including Xenos cultists and Chaos ambushes, and a lot of their battle groups being tied down facing an Orc war. The Choral Engine itself is perhaps the main thing that's driving the whole conflict. Like the Astronomicon, it's maintained by powering it with willing or unwilling psychers from the Imperium, and it seems to have a bunch of very helpful properties that the Imperial defenders really don't want to lose. Somehow it seems to massively amp up Imperial psychers with their more puritanical warp magic and repress the power of any sort of chaos-tainted heresy magic and demons. Demons in the entire sector are easier to banish because of it, and the Inquisitors being able to fuel the thing because there's a whole load more psychers around due to the whole psychic awakening. The Indomitus fleet had already built some mighty defences around it called a Fortress of Light, so already somewhat prepared when the Grey Knights turned up and basically said that their prognosticors had said that this entire beacon was basically going to be drawing in a huge fleet of chaos, and their company had turned up to help repel the Chaos invaders and safeguard the beacon that is going to help out the Imperium Nihilus. The Fourth Fleet set out a bit of an alarm call, an enormous amount of Imperial defenders converged on them, an enormous amount of spacecraft flooding the system, and plenty of defenders on the ground as well. Some notable presence was there from the White Scars, Order of Armata Lady Sisters of Battle, the Imperial Fist, House Terran Knights, and plenty more. It's basically an enormous Imperial alliance. Of course, coming to smash the system are Angron's Bale fleet. That includes his Ark of Omen and his flagship the Conqueror, a Chaos fleet that kind of equals or betters the combined might of the Defenders, really quite a big clash. Vashtorr's about and mainly is just interested in obtaining that key fragment regardless of what else happens. And Angron's there and is usually just up to his normal levels of Khornate insanity. He just wants to break that psychic beacon and destroy it as an affront to Khorne, and basically anathema to the Chaos Gods and their great game. In recent times, Angron's lore is that he's basically a very hard demon to banish these days. Usually when you slay demons, they have to recover in the warp for really quite a long time before they can return back to real space. They don't truly die, but you can certainly set them back for a long time. Angron seems kind of unusually yoked to reality. Every time he's banished, he reincarnates 8 weeks, 8 days, and 8 hours later, so he's just going to turn up again and have another go. As well as Angron's Bale fleet, there was another separate Chaos incursion as well from the Scourge. There was the Ancient Renegade chapter that had a bunch of lore and rules in the previous Chaos Codex. Their Ark of Omen is called the Stygian Heart, and they wish to secure the power of the beacon and claim it for themselves. I guess great big psychic beacons are precisely the sort of thing that Tzeentch psychers enjoy. So the scene's set, and the first opening acts are the space battle around the system. The Stygian Heart enters reality and is immediately beset by a vast amount of Imperial defenders, taking heavy damage and very much on a losing fight. Before the Imperials have quite finished destroying it, though, Angron's Bale fleet arrives, and over the course of a whole bunch of fighting, they broadly defeat the Imperial defenders. There's a fair few battles where various parties board each other's ships. I kind of feel like this is Games Workshop trying to give you some narrative to play the boarding actions game mode that they have alongside this series. I'd guess that just about every one of these books is probably going to centre around ship-to-ship combat. Most of the Imperial defenders aren't ones that are named from the lore, though it does look like the World Eaters just in general are out in force, both Khan the Betrayer and Lord Invocatus about, the two other named characters from Codex World Eaters. Perhaps the most notable loss that the World Eaters take is that their Ark of Omen is sabotaged. A boarding assault of Imperial forces forces it to jump back into the warp. A big blow to their Chaos fleet, but broadly their fleet is still big enough to win the battle. Then the World Eaters make planetfall, which is rarely going to be a good thing for Imperial defenders, however well prepared. They assault the Fortress of Light. Angron leads the charge accompanied by 8 Bloodthirsters, blast through the gates, and take the fight to the enemy within. In a last-ditch effort, Inquisitor Imagna overloads the engine, removes all the safeguard, and allows a whole bunch of purifying psychic energy to flood through the fortress, banishing many of the demons and weakening the World Eaters in general. Despite the full force of the mini Astronomicon turned into a weapon, though, Angron still fights his way through the psychic storm to the centre of the fortress, and it can't be bothering him all that much to be honest. He's still got the energy to kill the bunch of Grey Knights alongside his Bloodthirsters, kill the Puritanical Inquisitor, and then destroy the affront to Khorne that is the Choral Engine, which blows up a huge chunk of the planet, killing attackers and defenders alike. Angron, being at the heart of the explosion, is cast back into the warp, though for him this tends to be a temporary setback anyway, so he's probably not all that bothered. Broadly speaking, it sounds like it's a big victory for Chaos, and perhaps the most lasting victory that they get is the entire sector is affected by something called the Murder Curse. The big sacrifice to Khorne seems to give him a massive boost in the area, and huge swaths of Imperial forces just fall into manic bloodlust, tearing each other apart, and basically dooming the entirety of the Battlefleet Quartus defenders into anarchy and infighting, utterly ineffective for helping maintain Imperial rule in the area. I guess that whole area of the galaxy just turns into a very Khorne-centered area from now on. Vashtorr maybe doesn't make the biggest appearances in the book, but basically towards the end he arrives to assume command of the Stygian Heart Ark of Omen that the Scourge were using, and uses the damaged Space Hulk to retrieve the artifact from the shattered world of Malakbael. He makes off with it to presumably add it to his key collection, one step closer towards his goal. Overall, the entire narrative just feels like a bit of a power trip for Angron's return, though I feel like it's quite a nicely executed story at that. Give him something that he genuinely hates, set him up against a truly massive enemy force for him to break into small pieces, at enough disadvantages to mean that he's actually going to be hard-pressed to get the job done. To be honest though, I think if you are playing Demon Primarch versus random new named Imperial characters, I can't help but think that the money was always going to be on the Demon Primarch, particularly in his own book. I feel like it's perhaps one of the limitations of 40k lore a bit, in that they really want to convey that the galaxy is very brutal and people die all the time, but then all the named characters that actually have models or their own ongoing narrative in storybooks, none of them can die. So it kind of means that if you're being introduced to a bunch of named characters from the Imperium, but none of them have models, I have a feeling that they've got a very short life expectancy and probably are going to cop it at some point soon. Overall, I'd say that this one's a bit more of a self-contained story. It maybe didn't really advance the whole narrative of Vashtorr and Angron getting the bits of the key all that much. I guess they're saving more reveals from that until later in the series. If we're sticking with the prediction that 4 tarot cards equals 1 book in terms of lore purposes, then this one would be the Host, the Hound, the Shattered World, and the God Emperor inverted. I feel like that does fit pretty well with the entire story. Angron leads a great host and shatters an Imperial world. I'd guess that the figure on the Shattered World one might represent that Inquisitor, and then the God Emperor inverted probably just implies it's a massive Imperial defeat. There's not going to be a second Astronomicon on the Imperium Nihilus on Angron's watch. Let me know your thoughts on the lore though. Kind of interesting that an entire section of Imperial space devolves into Khornate madness. Quite good fun. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k stuff coming, including new videos just about every day. I'll try and make some similar ones for the other Arks of Omen books. Finally, if you've been enjoying the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that in the video description below. It is the thing that allows me to keep these videos coming quite so regularly, so if you are enjoying a lot, then any support is enormously appreciated. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.